Hi, this is Phil, and I'm here to make sure you know all about the Capes and Lunatics Patreon. Don't miss out on all new episodes of Wade's World, Boob Windows and Long Boxes, our Hard R movie reviews, and so much more, all completely uncensored. Access starts for as little as $1 a month, full videos when you pledge $3 a month. Check us out at the link in all of our show notes, or just go straight to patreon.com/capesandlunatics. Hope to see you there.
Avast me hearties, and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is me skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hey Mozz, welcome back to the penultimate episode, take a drink, of Invincible. Dun, 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 dun. Season 1, Episode 7, We Need to Talk. Feeling lost and confused, Mark looks for advice from Eve. At the same time, everyone's looking for him. Our director is, of course, the great Jeff Allen, supervising director no less. Robert Kirkman, Ryan Otley, they are created by and co-created by. Ryan Otley gets a writer credit this one. The written by is actually for Simon Racchioppa, or possibly Racchioppa, and Corey Walker gets a co-creator credit at the very end for reasons we don't question. All right, so we
This one starts with the immortal fight, right?
No, we get to that in a minute. There's some. No, actually, what is that? No, actually, that comes next episode.
Oh, is that right?
That's right. This is one thing I wanted to. So, for those who listened to our fierce discussion last episode, I would like to correct my statement because I had made the statement that humanity survives through cooperation. Mozz had put a point about competition being the driving force of humanity. What I really meant to say was that we are not competitive except through cooperation. And that was my real point. Exactly. That basically for a guy like, I'm blanking on his name now, but for, I'm sorry?
Cecil?
Cecil, yeah. For Cecil, it's all about cooperation because he's got like 1,000 different pieces working all the time, trying to keep it moving forward. So, and because we do see our friends again next episode, actually, I think, or maybe this episode. Yeah, we see them in this episode. Yes, that's right. We see them in this episode. We see how much he's willing to work with all the pieces, but also try to maintain his own moral high ground. Because that's a very important part of that when he releases the drones. So we're going to get to that in a minute, though. Getting back to the story. So this one actually opens up with, because there's two stories. One is the driving back with Amber. And, you know, so right now, of course, I believe his name is Will, who is,
The best friend.
Yes, our best friend. Amber and Mark are driving back. You know, Will is very upset about his boyfriend, obviously.
And can barely keep it together, not being able to talk to Mark about what's happening.
Exactly. And Amber is very standoffish because, you know, she is sick of being lied to. And, you know, she gets some character blowback, she got some character blowback about some of this stuff, especially when things come out later. But really, at the end of the day, it's only one episode where she's dealing with all this, and it is, it's still a lot, and it's that idea that, you can't just make things better by a grand gesture. When you've spent the whole time lying and realize, well, I guess I can't lie anymore, so now I'm going to tell the truth.
But at the same time, I mean, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is like he's a superhero, for crying out loud. That's not what this. And he chose you to tell you it didn't happen fast enough for you, and now you're like,
no, it's not that it didn't happen fast enough. It's that, and that's the complexity of it. It's like, yeah, he, you can't. What it is you can't expect everything to just say, oh, well, you're a superhero. I guess I owe you this.
Not at all. But not to react that way about it. I don't think she has a leg to stand on to be as upset as she is.
I think
you didn't tell me you were a superhero. We've been seeing each other for a little while. I'm so upset you didn't tell me you were a superhero.
Well, actually, her point was she knew he was a superhero. She had figured it out.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think it's because since she knew he was a superhero, it's, there are certain things that go along with that, but at the same time, that's still no reason to jerk her around and lie to her.
No. That's painting it with a tone that I don't think is deserved. Should not she have some sort of empathy towards the situation that he's in? Which is unique and singular and very different from what her experience is. Should she not have some understanding for the other side, or is it always supposed to
no. She and to be fair, it's not that she doesn't have it, but she doesn't. What she needs time for him to respect that things just don't go back just because you want them to go back, just because it's become an inconvenience for you. Because that's the thing. That's the real thing. It's that it has become an inconvenience to him to continue lying, so now he's going to tell her the truth. And yes, it's a big gesture, but, people don't like grand gestures. Generally speaking nowadays, they don't.
A way to strip his act of any integrity at all, or any validation.
What it was a teenager's decision in a teenage situation, and he expected a result that wasn't there. But now, of course,
right. But she's not. Isn't she a teenager and equally prone to criticism for
but what it is you can't criticize one without criticizing the other.
Well, that's all I'm saying. What I'm saying is, like, it seems like we're laying the blame all on Mark, and not questioning the other side at all.
I'm not trying to lay the blame on Mark. Mark is, but the idea that things just change for your convenience is the problem.
Right. It's got to change for someone's convenience. She's just mad it didn't change for her convenience.
No, because she's mad.
So her being
that
upset that a superhero didn't tell her secret identity is the same as a superhero risking his entire life, risking his entire future on telling somebody. That has the same weight?
No, but and again, what is at issue isn't that, because as I said, she figured out that he was invincible. And that's the thing. If he had said, look, so for example, had he come to her and said, I want to explain something to you. The reason I kept on disappearing is because I have this secret life. I'm actually invincible.
Right, and that's a reasonable expectation for her to have of a superhero?
No, listen. Let me give you a counterfactual. Had he approached it that way, instead of showing up in uniform, flying into her room uninvited, and saying, "Here I am," and now don't you feel silly that you were mad at me?
Yeah, he forgot his TPS report. God forbid.
Well, no, he forgot that just because you're a superhero doesn't mean you get to be, the boss of everyone. The same problems that Rexplode has, the same problem that Omni-Man has. It's a microcosm of the same thing, and about what Mark needs to learn as a human being to be a better person is to understand that you don't just get to make people be something.
Right, and there's no lessons here for Amber, right?
No, there's lots of lessons for Amber. But the fact of the matter is that she's the one that's been lied to.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, okay, you can laugh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because women, you can just lie to them whenever you want. What the heck? What does it matter? You know, you don't think that someone can have an emotional reaction to having been lied to, even for a good cause?
Right, but an overreaction is also something that should be pointed out.
She doesn't overreact. She just says, you know, you've been stringing me along and treating me like I was too dumb to figure it out.
Calling it stringing you along and not understanding that it's a superhero who's maybe choosing to reveal his secret identity to you. It's like something so childish versus something life-altering, and comparing those two things as the same thing.
Well, no, it is. And again, he's the one that's choosing to have this relationship. He's choosing to have this relationship with someone. Because that's the thing. He could also be like Omni-Man and just be a monk. But he doesn't want to be a monk, but he also doesn't want to treat the woman he's with respect. That's the real point here.
Yeah,
or he wants to respect her, he just doesn't know to have the language yet.
I don't think that's what he's doing. He's doing his best.
He's trying to say, look how cool I am. Because he doesn't approach her as an equal. He approaches her as invincible. And being invincible isn't why she wants to date him. Isn't that what he's trying
to tell her? I'm invincible. That's the thing he's trying to tell her.
No. He wants to say,
put it in like he's trying to make a power structure out of it.
But he is, because, you know, he could have just said, listen, I want to talk. Let's just talk about why I lied. Because I think if you let me explain things, you might understand better. And this whole idea of I'm going to put on my uniform and show up and fly into your room, instead of giving her time to cool off, because not for nothing, he knows that she likes him, and when he gives her time to cool off, she usually cools off and they get back to it. But he keeps on wanting things to be right away. He doesn't want to have to go through the trouble to explain himself.
It seems to me like she's the one that wants things right away, doesn't want things to develop.
No, she just wants him
Tell me. Why didn't you tell me yesterday? I knew, but why didn't you tell me yesterday? It's like, oh my God. That's
but that's the thing.
on what we look at it, but that's how I see it.
I mean, that's the thing. Well, and that's, look, I'm going to say that the arc of the story is about treating humans with respect.
Right.
Because that's what Nolan doesn't do. And when we get to that conversation next episode, that's the parallel we're going to get. And that's also where we're going to get Amber's reaction, because obviously Amber is overreacting. She knows she's overreacting, but she has to process her own hurt. And you can't just make the hurt go away by coming out and saying, by saying you should forgive me because of who I am. Because here's how awesome I am, and that's why I've been a jerk. When it's like, no, you were being a jerk, but you're going to say it was because you were doing something.
And saving lives.
You were being a jerk.
I'm sorry, there was a fire, and I'm a firefighter. I apologize. I had to go save lives.
And as Will points out, gee, if only you had come with me when I first came to you and said something's wrong, maybe we could have saved him. So it's like, that's kind of the thing. He puts himself first when it's convenient for him, and then he puts other people's first when it's inconvenient for other people. And it's not to say it's
that's what people do every single.
Well, no, it's what people learning things do, and that's really the point. It's about people learning things.
Right.
It's about Mark having to learn how to balance being a hero and being a human. Something his father had done, but he is losing sight of it at this point. Because I think that's the real catalyst of this whole series. Is that idea where you make the connections and you respect human beings and you build something better with them. That is a different situation than when you just say, I'm a superhero and I deserve this thing. And
I'm not saying I deserve it, but have a little understanding.
Well, but
that's
again,
a reasonable ask, right?
Well, it's reasonable to ask, but it's not reasonable to expect anything. Sure. That's the point.
And it does, and it plays out as it does.
It does, but you have to admit that him coming in uniform in the grand gesture.
I don't have to admit that. I don't see it that way at all. But
okay, so you think that's just the way to do it?
That way.
You just say, "See, aren't I glorious?"
I didn't see that at all. I think that's a connotation being put on it.
But what else is it? What else is it when that's the way he does? He
Trying
does to
his
reveal
best
that.
to say, look, I don't know how to tell you. I don't have this conversation. I'm just going to show up and be like, okay, I don't know how to say this.
Yeah,
But this is
well,
the best
he's
I can
bad
do.
at conversations,
Right? No, totally.
and it's very easy to interpret it the other. So let's put it that way.
Okay.
Let's say that someone does that, and I don't know what's in their head. I don't know. Is he doing this to say, look how awesome I am, or is he saying, look, I don't know how to say this? But what I'm seeing as the person who's being put in this situation,
you're
now
deciding
being told
to see
I have to make a choice.
There you go. Right.
And then I was going to say, you know what my choice is? I don't want any part of it. Because you clearly don't have the skills to be a human being.
Well, neither do you if you don't have the level of understanding to understand what the other person is going through and are selfish enough to think that only your feelings matter and aren't willing to compromise to say, okay, yeah, we're both in a tough spot.
No, she was more than willing to compromise because she had up until this point. She compromises on him going to Mars.
It was like, no, it's done. No more compromising. Done. You showed up in your uniform. No more compromising.
Well, when you act like it's your entitlement.
Well, that was an interpretation that was chosen.
Well, but that was the easiest interpretation. If you show up in full uniform, you're trying to get the goodwill of the uniform. No, it is. It is.
I mean, again, I welcome your opinion and your.
I'm sorry.
That way,
I think that when you show up in full uniform, you're trying to get the goodwill of the uniform.
I can see how somebody.
You don't wear that uniform on the street.
I'm just saying I arrived on the other side of that issue, and that's fine.
And that's fine. And to be fair, so does she at the end. By the end, she comes around on it, and it is that thing. But like I said, we can when we look at it from the perspective of the person who is omniscient, it's very different than a first-person narrator.
Fair enough. I mean,
because from her first-person
all
narrative,
I'm saying is this is how I reacted. This was my reaction. This is how I saw it. And you can present how you saw it, and you know.
No, well, I'm trying to understand how she saw it.
No, how you saw she saw it. That's what I'm.
Well,
trying to say.
and you want to put it how you saw she saw it.
Exactly. That's all I'm saying. That's all.
You want to say she's a no account lady, and she just doesn't understand how lucky she is to have a superhero stripper.
And there you go, putting fantastical versions of my arguments as words in my mouth.
Well,
make it sound ridiculous.
but then what is the argument if it's not? You should forgive me because I'm invincible.
No, if she found, my argument is if she knew he was a superhero, the fact that in that moment, instead of thinking, oh, wow, he's a superhero, he hasn't told me that's what all superheroes do. Superheroes don't ever tell anybody their secret identity. Maybe he'll tell me, instead of saying, hey, we just met 3 weeks ago. Why didn't you tell me 2 weeks ago that you were a superhero? That was her first thought.
Well, actually, it's been several months.
That thought had so much impetus that it carried through and she was willing to
at this point, it's been most of the high school year, and he has been ditching her and coming back to her and basically leaving her hanging the whole time. So, from her perspective, even after she figures out, oh, is he like the superhero guy? And the thing is that she probably came to this understanding because she saw Invincible on campus.
Right.
So she knew Invincible's there. It probably is him. And then they drive all the way home. And she's like, well, I guess that's where he's at. And honestly, if he's just telling her because she's mad at him, that is not a real reason to tell her.
Right, because he could have.
That is a cop-out
this person
reason.
is unreasonable. I'm out of here.
No,
and instead he turned around and said, "Let me tell her."
No, he doesn't. Okay, he only says that because she says she's tired of it.
Right. No, and I think she was.
And you don't.
Unreasonable.
Well, yeah, but the idea is when someone says I'm tired of it, and you don't give them space, that's you saying no. You're not allowed to have space. You're not allowed to figure it out for yourself. I'm more important. I'm invincible. I am effing invincible, and you will respect that because that's what women like. No, that's what he does.
I think he just wanted to be heard before he took his hiatus. To make.
I'm sorry.
I think he just wanted to be heard before he took his hiatus.
Well, but you know what? He should have slept on it. Okay. They should have been on a break. And rushing back into it wouldn't have been good.
Certainly,
because even if she were to...
Opinion. Certainly an
Well, I'm just saying,
I get it.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, obviously, we're going to disagree on this one.
And that's fine, But
because again, I think that there is a statement to be made that he did not handle it properly.
No, but neither of them did. That's the thing. She's not.
Well,
blameless.
not well.
Right, and that's okay.
Well,
but that's
what
just
it is they're having two different
conversations.
conversations.
My opinion.
He's having a conversation about how he is reacting to her, rather than how she is feeling.
Right, but
so as she's
at
feeling,
no point here have we considered his feelings. Right. That's the issue that I'm saying.
His feelings. We get all of his feelings because he's the protagonist.
Right.
So we always know his feelings.
Okay.
We know why he didn't do it. In fact, he even throws it at Eve later, saying, "You're the one who told me not to tell her." It's like, yeah, because if you're going to get involved in a relationship with a normal person, that's very complex, and you shouldn't do it unless you're ready for it. But he was like, "But she's pretty," and it's like, great. You're going to just be treating her as an object. And that's the idea, that it was so important for him to get the last word that he had to continue to present, you just don't understand. You just don't know why I have to do all these things. And, and again, like I said, I doubt she really knew, and probably she didn't conceive it until they're on campus and Invincible shows up. But at the same time, it's just this idea that the only reason you're telling me is because I have a legitimate concern about your interest in this relationship.
Sure.
Because you keep on blowing me off.
Sure.
And, in that moment, you need that break. You need to give people time to breathe. And not giving people time to breathe is how you cause these problems. Because again, if he just didn't tell her, but then everything else happened as it happens, and she sees it on TV and she sees what happens, then her arc continues as it would have, where she realizes, I really was too hard on him. He wasn't trying to control the situation. He was just trying to keep his secret identity and all the things that superheroes have to do and follow that lead. But he can't let it go, and she can't let it go. They're two teenagers. They can't let it go in that moment. Nobody is mature enough. That's the problem. And you can't be mad at one and not also be mad at the other. That's my point.
It didn't seem like it.
Well, no. Well, my point is that when you get too defensive of one perspective,
that was my point. All you had was that one perspective.
Well, yeah, but then again, I'm trying to look at it from her perspective, not our perspective.
Well, I'm just saying to paint it in that way to deserves equal thing, an equul look on both sides.
There is a back and forth, and I'm sure in his failure he thought that was a good action, and but he was wrong, and that happens. How many times have we tried to flirt with someone and been wrong? It happens. We move on. We carry on. We move on to the next thing. And speaking of relationships that aren't going anywhere, Nolan and his wife.
Yeah, that goes south pretty hard.
And again,
this is the episode where he calls her a pet, right?
No, that's next episode again. Man, I think, or it might be this episode. It might be.
This is not where Nolan and Mark have their argument.
Well, no. This is that's that with the subway.
I guess that is the finale. Interesting.
That is the finale. Right. Yeah. No, this is actually Nolan wanting to talk, and we actually see him like on Mount Everest trying to think, how does he explain this to his son? Because it is this issue that he's having difficulty expressing and explaining, because it's not easy. It's not easy to say, actually, I'm here to conquer the world, not rescue it.
Because I
had to take up the threats to this conquest.
And what he's really confronted with when he's trying to have this conversation with his son is because a part of him doesn't agree with the ethos that he or is supposed to uphold, right? So he's trying to have this conversation with himself, but he can't confront himself really with that question. Never has been able to. And now the fact that he has to have this conversation with his son, it's like he has to verbalize that viewpoint, and he can't seem to find the argument that makes sense even to him. And I think that's the wall he's coming up against.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. That is, and it's parallel there between Mark's mom and Amber, and again in how these people interpret certain things. When Nolan says, "Maybe I wanted you to find it,"
I can't hear you. Don't know if it's my internet or yours.
Doesn't want to.
I lost you there for a second.
Follow through with this.
It's getting kind of spotty there too. Hello?
Tristan, check the internet, please.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's better.
Okay.
Well.
It's better? Oh, could also be the storm clouds of ruin.
Yeah.
Just unplug it so it doesn't overheat, Tris. Yeah. I got it on broadcast TV, but everyone's on their own device now too. Yeah. So, okay.
You there? I can't hear you. I'm going to pause the recording for a moment. All right. So you were saying about how Omni-Man wanted her to find, a part of him wanted her to find him. Find the
because he wanted her to find it because he didn't want to keep the secret anymore. Because if you think about it, I mean, the Viltrumites, he's kept that a secret from her the whole time. But, Viltrumite, she knew he came here to help the Earth and protect the Earth. His lies were just navigable. But now it's like he has to say it. And
right. But at the same time, he's think about it from his perspective. He's lived for how many thousands of years before this, right? So his scope of his reference point is very different. He's a different species, right? So to get a different species to ascribe to the morality that our mortality affords us is a tall ask, or at least just to say.
Well, he says that.
No, but fair enough.
I mean, well, what I'm saying is, and what it really seems like, and in his, because we get
boom. So yeah, so I think the last point I was making was whether or not you can expect a different species with a different frame of reference to adhere to our moral, or should we look at what this being did here and commend him for what he was able to overcome about his programming. And if you just look at how hard it is for him to overcome his programming, he really wants to take care of the Earth, he really wants to be good to Debbie, but it's just man, I can't. Thousands of years this has been ingrained in me. Our planet, the story of their planet is they made everybody fight each other until half the population was done just so the strongest could survive, kind of thing. And that's the sort of where he came from. And so now it's taken him this long to be able to fight that programming, and even he's about to kill his son.
Well, that's next episode.
Sorry, but
yeah,
we get to and that's what it takes to finally have a little bit of chink in the armor. So it's a different thing where he's coming from, and this life has been like a blink of an eye for him relative to the rest of his experience.
But that's always where it gets into that more complex question about life, because time flows the same. Even when he goes to that world where he's living 100 years in the blink of an eye, he's still living each one of those 100 years while he's there. And it may take him that 100 years to decimate that planet. But you know what? Actually interesting in that is that, well, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that next episode.
Hard not to, yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's because it's 2 episodes. But what I really want to talk about is how these human emotions are really causing these problems. Because obviously, Debbie and Nolan have their falling out. And, she throws the wine bottle at him. He catches it. And again, it is this idea that he's not going to kill her. He doesn't want to kill anyone. But especially not someone he actually has this relationship with. And to him, it's just it's an interesting question. And it goes interestingly enough to that question I was raising about Cecil and whether or not Cecil would put working with people above completing his mission. And whether or not completing his mission, and that's the thing, Cecil definitely would rather complete his mission than do a favor for someone. But he's not going to not do a favor for someone if that's going to imperil his longer mission.
Or if it gives him some sort of benefit.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And it's all about for Cecil, and again, because he is a competitive but highly cooperative species, he knows he's the weakest animal. But he knows if he can get all the other animals on his side, then they can approach something stronger. And that is the goal. And that is the strength of humans, arguably, is this fact that they do, and for what it's about, interestingly enough, Viltrumites do work together. But if there is something that we see from their history, when they start expanding their empire, especially since they're very long-lived, which means they probably don't reproduce that much, because who knows what the gestation rate is for an actual Viltrumite.
Are there any Viltrumite women? I haven't heard of one.
Oh, no, we saw them. We saw them.
Oh, we did? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
That's right, we did. Right.
In fact, I think his commander's a woman. Thinks he's even a woman of color when she's handing out the assignments when Nolan, who still has the Grey Temples at that point, which is as soon as I was old enough, but he still has the Grey Temples. So I'm guessing he got the Grey Temples very early in his life.
Interesting.
Which happens. It's actually a female commander who's giving him the assignment.
Gotcha.
I
wonder what the actual Viltrumite gestation period would be.
I mean, I don't know, but imagine if you think about, like, if you compare it like to comparable densities, an elephant takes like a full year.
Oh.
And if they're like 1,000 times stronger than an elephant, it may take 1,000 years of pregnancy to make one Viltrumite.
Or would it just be like the amount of biomass, however long it takes to create that many cells? Like, being that each cell is stronger, you're saying it would take longer to make each cell?
Well, I'm saying that the density of the cells probably go into it. So there's more cells in a Viltrumite, or there's more atoms in a Viltrumite cell. And they're born very weak, and then they put these children through this rigorous training that kills most of them. Which is the other aspect of Viltrumite lore, that once they've established themselves, now that we are the pure, we're going to reproduce, we're going to make more of us, but of course we can't let any latent genes get into our gene pool. So we're going to have to make sure those children endure what we just did, where we killed half of our population. We need to make sure that each of these children are able to rise. And along those lines, we get a very interesting side note in this when we get to Robot's story. Because in many ways, this is Robot's story, who we find out in this one, Robot is a horribly deformed being, but is essentially 1,000,000 times smarter than any other being on the planet. And you realize how this being would have been killed on Viltrum. But that super genius Viltrumite might have actually been exactly what the Viltrumites needed. Although along those same lines, as smart as Robot is, he still needed the Mahler brothers to make his clone.
No, but he needs everything to do anything, right? So they're just a tool. They're just a part of...
No. But my point is that he was smart enough to say, I'm not just going to steal their schematics and try to do it myself. These guys are experts. I'm going to defer to the expert.
Right. It's like that famous scene in so many movies where it's like, why can't you get somebody else to do it? It's like, why would I get somebody else to do it? You owe me money. you'll do it for free. Go do the job, right? So it's kind of like that thing. He had them in his pocket, and he's like, I know they're going to get, arrested by the time. Let's let them do the work. Let's get something out of them before I have to turn them in. But
more along those lines, he didn't want to do the work himself.
Right.
Because he knew that, yes, he could probably reinvent the wheel the way they did. But these guys have been doing it so long and so well. And for what it's worth, as we get the transfer, they immediately realize, this was not meant to transfer a brain that looks like this into a brain that looks like that. But then, on the fly, they fix it.
But do they, though? Do they?
Well, it gets to 100%.
Right, but I feel like there's got to be some sort of effect. Because I don't know if it's just the effect of, and I've been waiting to talk about this for a while, but when he does become human, like he's not the same. Is it just because of how he sees himself that he doesn't have the confidence to get people to do what he says? Or like, is that stoic nature gone because of his humanity? Or like, because when he gets there and people question him, he he cowers. And he's like, I only meant to, he doesn't have that air of supreme control that he has.
Well, I mean, he has it when he's dealing with the Mahler brothers.
That's true, but when he gets back to headquarters and the rest of the team question him about it, he seems to be like a little deferential and like a little scared and a little. And I guess maybe that's the effect of Monster Girl.
I mean, yeah,
maybe that has something to do with it. But it was just interesting. I thought maybe that would point to a difference in him pre versus post.
Well, I think that right now it's the first time he has actually had to be with other people as a person. And it's a thing when you know you're human, but at least you have the mask on, and everyone just thinks you're a super sentient robot. And then when you actually know I never was a robot, I was always I'm actually most curious about, like, what was his life before the robot? Like, did someone build him this? Like, how did he get to survive this long? But
how
maybe
did he get from like the pupa stage.
Yeah, well, because he makes the point that he didn't design his life support module to ever be opened. Well, though it's interesting because he eventually does open it, and you see that the thing pops off once and it's probably an air pressure thing. But it's like, it's interesting to me that he was able to get it open, but it's like it was opened in a way that it couldn't be reclosed. Because, and again, because that was what he wanted. He wanted to live the human life. And so that's what he's doing now. But it is, and that's something we're going to get to again next episode, because these two do overlap so much. Yeah. What I think is the big one here, because we don't even see the Immortal until next episode. So the real point of this episode is the relationship conversations, and you have this thing with Nolan, like when he confronts Will, he says he went to Eve's place. She said she lives in the woods out west, and Will doesn't even know that Eve is Adam Eve yet either. So it's also very funny.
Right. But it's funny there in that moment, he knows that, that's Mark's dad. Mm-hmm.
He does know, because he does know that Invincible is the son of. Because I think he even said that in the car.
It in the car ride. He goes, "Wait,
your dad's
Omni-Man's your dad? Like, not only are you a superhero, but like your dad is the greatest superhero ever."
Yeah, and I guess it's maybe kind of that fun point about being a superhero. It's that people don't always see through your masks. That's actually, people aren't looking.
Yeah.
For For who this person might be. This line I was reading on some joke about how hard it is for people to recognize celebrities out of costume or out of character. And, someone said, it's not like if I saw someone show up in L.A., in a Kevlar vest and beating up criminals, I'm going to think, oh, that's Kylie Jenner, which is never going to be a connection I make. Right. As one of the other lines was, if I saw someone beating up criminals and cops, last thing I'm going to think is, oh, they must be a billionaire. So,
right.
But in this moment, we do have So we do have in this the efforts to stop Nolan as he's flying to find Mark. And this is where we get the release of the Frankensteins.
Oh,
Yeah, the kaiju is the last one that they let out. But first they let out the Frankensteins, and they make the point that these were made from dead soldiers that were given one last chance to serve their country.
Interesting.
And you can see that these got like that gray Deathlock face. So the other guys had like a pink face. Huh. So even in there, Cecil's saying, okay, I'm going to give you all the body parts you want, but we're not going to kill someone, and it's going to be people that have volunteered. You know, and also for what it's worth, we're going to control them anyway. So what are we worried about here? You know, we just need something that can operate at that level to bother a Viltrumite. We also see them, you know, releasing the old Saul's hammer ray gun, the space laser.
It's so interesting to watch sort of Cecil go through the progression like a quarterback, you know.
Yeah.
All the things he's been laying the groundwork for years. As soon as they encounter him, he's like, all right, maybe this will do it. Let's just hold it on fire. Maybe this will do it. Let's just hold it on fire. Because that kaiju you see earlier in a couple of episodes ago, and Cecil calls his little underling and says, hey, you know what? It's not dead. Put it on ice. We might need it later. And he brings it back here now. So, like, it's so interesting to see, like, okay, I had this idea. Well, that was a bad idea. Let's try the next one. Yeah, no, that was a bad idea, too. And it's just like it's got a closet full of these bad ideas, and it's just so fun.
Well, you know, to be fair, he lives on a death world. You know, like for what it's worth, the Viltrumite got here, and there were already other superheroes,
right?
Because we actually see when we get to we'll get to that next episode, but you know, yeah, the superheroes were already here when the Viltrumite got here. I don't know if he was expecting that. Because I think that they weren't I think he was kind of expecting, you know, what it says in the brochure, which is just it's a basic, you know, mudball, non-superhuman dominant race, you know, very technologically clever, but that's about it. You know, nothing to write home about. And then he got here, and now there are people that move faster than him, which is a shock. People that can take a hit as good as him. People that can also fly. And then Martians are showing up. And all these beings on this planet that really shouldn't have this many superpowered beings on a species that isn't naturally superpowered. So I think a lot of that is one of the reasons why Nolan had a harder time with what he was going to do, and probably why he eventually found himself with Debbie, because, you know, it wasn't as easy or as clear-cut of a plan as the Viltrumite Empire thought it would be. Because, as it turns out, when you're not sending an army of Viltrumites, these planets are hard to take over. Because we see when they were battling the orange guys, they had like 10 of them. You know, they had a whole army of Viltrumites coming in to take over the planet and to destroy it if they resisted.
Right, you're talking about Alan's species, right?
Yeah, Alan the alien. Yeah, there's also a shark guy species, and then again, like I said, we've seen the cat guy, and we're going to see more of him. But anyway, let's wrap it up here because I think we've gotten a lot. We've had a lot of starts and stops, but I'm sure we've gone our time. And I do want to get to the next episode where we can really talk about what this all means. So, Mozz, if anyone would like to reach out to you and talk to you about this show, how can they do so?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZ MANZOOR.
And, of course, if you'd like to write to me that old-fashioned email way the way our mothers and fathers once did, do so at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. Of course, follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet things like Legends of Tomorrow and maybe Loki on Wednesday nights at 8, I think it's supposed to be, but we'll see when the official tweeting is, as determined by Master Disney, at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieSSER. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing!
Thank you, Mozz, and thank you, Tristan. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for another glorious evening sailing the briny main with me and me first mate Mozz. Come back again next week as we once again sail full stream ahead. Arr.